Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First, let's talk about Mike Pence. He has suspended his campaign for his presidential run. But I'm asking the question, can the GOP survive without MAGA? As it looks like that is becoming the party of the conservatives and the Republicans. We'll talk about that. Also, parable politics and prophetic faith, as I check in with retired federal judge and author, Pastor Wendell Griffin, to give us his take on what's happening in Black America and how we should move forward. And then later on, Halloween cultural appropriation and trying to understand it all, folks. There are some things I think that are off limits for tonight's festivities. What about you? We're going to talk a little bit about that. So stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Very, very excited to have you joining us this afternoon as we have these conversations. And of course, we thank my online culture crew for coming through and making themselves known. Big shout out to them. Can we get a little horns for the online culture crew? Because folks are checking in from all around the country. I see you, Pastor Damon Blissett. Cindy D, I see you. There we go. Pauline Hurt, thank you so much. Pretty Brown Mimi, 726, thank you for checking in. My sister Lana, thank you so much as always, talking about the king of the culture. I might be a prince. I might be a prince, Lana. But I appreciate you for checking in as always. And folks are still coming into the chat. Folks, you can join us right now as we're streaming live on the Roland Martin's YouTube page. And you can join the online culture crew, the illustrious culture crew, as we have these conversations. But more importantly, check us out on our various platforms as we are streaming right now. Check us out at our home platform, blackstarnetwork.com. Make sure y'all check us out there. Download the app for free. Follow us on social media at Black Star Network. And of course, give to support the online platform that is powering its way to a digital movement. So make sure y'all check us out there. We're also on Amazon TV, on your Fire TV, Amazon News, to be more specific, on your Fire TV, as well as Amazon Prime Video. We would love to have you check us out there, as we'll find us on our Amazon Prime Video app under Live TV, the news, or you can find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, then Live TV, the news. So big shout out to Amazon there. Also, we're streaming live on Freevee, and you can find us under On Now for news, and we are on Plex TV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All right, folks, let's jump right into it. Who I got? Oh, Kathleen, I see you. And Corinna and Tiana, y'all are checking in. Thank you so much. Can't wait to hear what y'all got to say about these conversations. All right, first up, let's talk about former Vice President Mike Pence. A couple of days ago, he made the major earth-shaking announcement. Folks, hold on to your seats here, crew, that he's not going to continue his presidential run. Mike Pence. Yes, he's not going to continue his presidential run. He essentially has said that this is not my time. You think? Maybe he sees some stuff right on the wall with his former boss coming down the pipe. He's like, I don't know. I might need to bow out there. But he is deciding not to move forward on his run. And as a result of that, if you don't know too much about Mike Pence, folks, he is like the far right before there was a far right, right? Like he was that guy. Like there's a particular reason why President Trump just happened to choose him, because he really does believe in some of those far right ideologies and policies. So he was the guy. The other part about it is that, I mean, he's not the most, exciting guy, but he knows how to make his way around and navigate through the system of governance. And that's what, of course, President Trump needed at the time. Now, given the fact that he has had a tumultuous relationship with the former president. Even going, and we saw that really taking a very, very dangerous turn on January 6th, where some of Trump's supporters were actually calling for the hanging of Mike Pence during their storming of the Capitol. And guess what? Trump didn't stop them. He didn't say, no, Mike is my guy. He didn't say that. Very kind of soft on stopping the resistance against Mike Pence. So it is very interesting. And of course, Mike Pence has been going back and forth about supporting Trump, about what happened on January the 6th, which I don't understand, considering the fact that your life was in danger, sir. And if my life is in danger, I would not be holding back against the man that's responsible for that. But you and me, we're different people. But at the end of the day, Mike Pence still believes in the system. He thinks that he had something to offer to the American people, but his numbers and his poll just did not show that. Tiana, you checking in. You said it wasn't his time to begin with. Chicken George can have several seats. Ouch. We're starting off hard, are we, Tiana? Are we starting off right there? Well, here's the thing, folks. My question is, can the GOP though really survive this MAGA reign? You know, and here's why I'm asking this question. Why we're asking this question? It's simply because we're seeing Mike Pence is a conservative. He's a conservative. He is a Republican, traditional conservative Republican. Average, you know, what you expect, right? But now the people that are coming behind Mike Pence, the type of people that we're seeing in the forefront. So, for example, the new House Speaker, Mike Johnson, and some of the others. Of course, we have the, who's that guy down from Florida, the congressman down there. But you're seeing a different bubble of political leadership coming from the GOP, right? That's more in alignment with the MAGA ideology. That's more in alignment with Trump. And so even though Trump is not physically back in the White House, his presence is certainly felt. And that's what I want us to kind of focus on for a few moments as we talk about this, because we might see some other folks starting to drop out as well. Now, Trump was recently in South Carolina, and the polls show, which may not be surprising to some of you, that he is blowing out his top competitor in the state, South Carolina's very own Nikki Haley. They're still showing that there's a huge gap between him and her, and she's at a distant second. So something is essentially happening here, folks. And more importantly, the GOP is going to have to try to figure out who it wants to be, or who they want to be, rather. So I would love to get your take on this. Can the GOP survive without MAGA? I want to get your take. Join us in the conversation as we're streaming live on Roland Martin's YouTube page. And crew, I would love to hear what you got to say. Corinna, you said suspends, laughing my ass off. Just say you dropped out, sir. Now go home and tend to mother. Rolling eyes, laughing emoji. Of course. What else can he say, Corinna? What else can he say? Mike Pence is not a strong candidate. And it's crazy that a person who served under the guy is not seen as the guy, as the next person to lead this country. But I was thinking more of like to lead the party. And that's what we're starting to see. More and more of your quote unquote traditional, even on the conservative side or on the moderate side, but more and more of your traditional Republicans are showing that they don't have the power. And now you have MAGA Republicans. This is a very interesting time. Again, I'm going to remember y'all, if y'all remember, we're going to take a quick pause after this. Y'all remember when they were talking about the Tea Party taking over the Republican Party, right? The Tea Party kind of laid the groundwork, right? The Tea Party talked about some things and got people kind of riled up, but it never really took hold, because one of the things that I was just kind of thinking about is that there wasn't any one singular figure as the person of the Tea Party. They were kind of, it was like a little bit, you know, like spread around. But the power of one in this case means all the difference in the world. With President Trump being at the forefront of this ideology of MAGA, what that means, how does that affect not just the party, but how that affects the country, what the impact that it has on democracy. Having a singular figure at the forefront, serving as not just the number one purveyor of this ideology, not even just the number one advocate, but he represents the symbol. He became the symbol, the thing that we can turn our attention to say, this is the guy that's responsible. Now, MAGA comes from a normal, in terms of the movement, in terms of some of even the ideology and the policies, it continues from the years of buildup within the Republican Party, from the Tea Party, from conservative, neoconservatism. All of these things happened over years, and it now has gotten to this place where a singular figure is serving as the head of the party. So let's talk a little bit more about that. I gotta take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue the conversation for a little bit on the other side. And I'd love to get your take on this, Prue. Can the GOP survive without MAGA? What's your take on this? Join us in the conversations. We're streaming live on Roland Martin's YouTube page and, of course, on Facebook. And, of course, stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. We just want to take a few more minutes to talk about that news that came out. It actually happened on Saturday, folks, with Mike Pence, where he decided that he would not continue the race for the president for the 2024 election cycle. So he said that he's just going to let it go. Can we play this? Let's play this a little bit, hear what he had to say.
And with everything our country is facing, I just couldn't sit this one out. But the Bible tells us that there's a time for every purpose under heaven. And traveling across the country over the past 6 months, I came here to say it's become clear to me, this is not my time. So after much prayer and deliberation, I have decided to suspend my campaign for president effective today. Now, I'm leaving this campaign, but let me promise you, I will never leave the fight for conservative values, and I will never stop fighting to elect principled Republican leaders to every office in the land. So help me God. Thank you. Thank you.
It's not his time, folks. It's not his time. Well, there is one, there are a number of people that are asking and wondering, well, why would he drop out? Well, there is one legal analyst by the name of Glenn Kirshner who says that Mike Pence might actually get the last laugh in this whole situation in his relationship with Donald Trump. Because as we know, Donald Trump, as much as he has relied on Mike Pence, he's also dogged him out in public. And so Mike Pence made this speech to the Republican Jewish Coalition Conference. But then on Saturday, President Trump suggested that Pence should actually endorse him for president, while at the same time he called Mike Pence disloyal. Come on, y'all. Y'all talk about President Biden. Y'all ride with me on this one. So he insults the man, but he said the insulted man should endorse me. According to President Trump, everybody that leaves seems to be endorsing me. You know, people are leaving now and they're all endorsing me. I don't know about Mike Pence. He should endorse me. He should endorse me. You know why? Because I had a great successful presidency and he was the vice president. He should endorse me. That's what the man said. He continued to say, I choose him, made him vice president, but people in politics can be very disloyal. Now, what Mr. Glenn Kirshner, who is a veteran federal prosecutor, has said about this situation on X, he said that it looks like Mike Pence will not be the 2024 Republican nominee, but he remains a sharply and directly incriminating witness against his former boss. Mike Pence will have the last laugh when he's called as a prosecution witness in that courtroom in Washington, D.C. And Donald Trump will be convicted by a jury of his peers so fast it will make his head spin. Wow. So let's put the little bow tie on that part of the drama, leading to what the implications are for the larger party. What's your take on this, crew? I want to get your take really quickly. Can the GOP survive without MAGA? And given the fact that there's this ongoing drama, how will this thing shape up? Cindy D, my sister, you said it's time for Tim Scott, Chris Christie, and Mr. Vinette to drop out. Oh, you think they all should drop out too, huh? We're going to leave. So let me make sure I understand this, your crew. Are we saying that we do want Trump to be the nominee? Is that what we're saying here? I just want, Cindy, is that what you're saying? You want to leave Trump out there? Are we saying it? Okay, let's keep it going very quickly. Tiana said Mike Pence would be a fool if he does endorse him. Oh, absolutely. If he endorses him, he'll be a fool. But if he's a prosecution witness, I'm like Glenn Kirshner. He might actually get the last laugh. Cindy, you said endorse the man who tried to kill you. Well, let's make that clear, Cindy. Endorse the man whose followers tried to kill you. I don't think so. Right. Exactly. Monkey Confessions, Democrats, you said this, Dems need to allow people to choose who they want. If it is Biden, so be it, but let the people decide. Trump will be the 2024 nominee. Corinna, you checked in and back in and said, no, we want, need, and require Biden-Harris to retain office, giving the supermajority in both chambers of the legislative branch. Absolutely. I hear you. And also, Corinna, you made the point that he did, since Mike Pence referenced the Bible, you said the Bible, here it goes. It's crazy, man. Look. This is, of course, is not a religious space, but we do have to mention that when people bring up the Bible and bringing up these very, very divine principles, you just got to be weary of anybody that use divine principles to cover up the madness and foolishness of their ways, right? And it's like the Bible said, now you want to bring out the Bible. Now now we go into the divine, but everything before was all satanic. But okay, I hear you. So it's going to be interesting. I think that the GOP is going to be searching for its identity, and they're going to be trying to figure out how to move forward with this situation. But if Mike Pence is out of the picture, okay, you still have these other candidates that really is struggling to really break through to even be a significant contender for Trump at this point. And folks, we need to look at this. We really, really need to look at this to see how this democratic system that we are all a part of is going to play out on this situation for the Republicans. That now, if you start to see more candidates dropping out of this race for president, we start to see more candidates that emerge from the MAGA camp who are going to be in more positions of power, and for the Republicans, like we're seeing with the Speaker of the House, like we're seeing with Gates and others who are coming up and ripping apart what we thought government would be, what we think government should be, then we are going to be in for a very, very rude awakening. So this will be interesting to see how the situation plays out. Look, I got to take another pause. When we come forward, let's continue to talk about politics, but let me do so with my very special guest, who is a man who is very, very, very knowledgeable about how the game of politics go. He was actually appointed to be a federal judge by former President Bill Clinton. He's retired now. He is an author of the book Parable, Politics, and Prophetic Faith. We're going to be talking to Pastor Wendell Griffin to get his take on all that we're seeing. Plus, he got some strong words to talk and to share as he gives his views about the Israel-Palestinian conflict and so much more. So he is our very special guest. We're going to be checking in with him in a moment. So stay with us. Though that conversation is up next right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness, and what happens in black culture. We're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Hey, Black, I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Now it's time for us to bring in our very special guest for today as we talk about all that's happening in Black America and across the globe. And this is a man who is very, very knowledgeable and familiar with the ins and outs of politics and government. And more importantly, he's looking at the situation across the water with Israel and Hamas and the Palestinian people, that conflict, and wants to share some views around this and so many other things as it affects Black America. So we are so happy to have joining us right now, retired federal judge. He's the author of the book, Parable, Politics, and Prophetic Faith, which has come out this year. He's also the author of the book, The Fierce Urgency of Prophetic Hope. And he is the author of the blog, Justice is a Verb. And so we are happy to have joining us Pastor Wendell Griffin, joining us here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network. Good afternoon, Pastor. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, brother. How are you this afternoon?
I am good by the grace of the God. Thank you so much for joining us, Pastor. I'm very, very excited to have this conversation with you because you are very vocal as not just a civil servant, but just as a constituent, as a citizen of this country. You have a lot to say, and I want to just kind of pick your brain a little bit to give us some insight as to what we're seeing, as you've been involved in so many different movements and have worked within so many different capacities within our government. First and foremost, Pastor, let's talk about your book, Parables, Politics, and Prophetic Faith. This is a powerful, powerful title. What is this book? What is the inspiration behind this book? And what is this book all about?
Alan Buzak from South Africa and I co-wrote this book, Brother Farajii, and we wrote it during the pandemic because we were seeing so many things from the apartheid surrounding the COVID situation, seeing the 2020 murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and the response around the world to that. People are coming out seeing the kinds of mess that the Trump administration was doing and the ways that the fascism was being played down in the regular media. But people were feeling it in their places of life and faith. And so this is what we did with. And I want to make a correction. I'm a retired state judge. I didn't do the federal thing. I was a retired state judge for 25 years.
Correction. Thank you. Yes, sir.
For 25 years. But that was what drove Alan Buzek and me to write this book, because whether you're talking about Ukraine or Haiti, whether you're talking about Philadelphia and Mumia Abu Jamal, or you're talking about this hateful faith that is passing itself off, Mike Pence, you talked about just earlier ago, but all of the folks who are running on the Republican side are talking about their faith, and they're hateful. And so we wrote this book, Parables, Politics, and Prophetic Faith, to talk about what prophetic does and ought to talk about in terms of the politics we're dealing with, and how the times we're dealing with are really parables about some of the messed up stuff that is going on that we read about in Scripture, but we don't connect the dots.
And I'm so happy, Pastor, that you do that, because I feel like part of the job of this show, one of the big goals, is to help connect dots with people to understand, connect the dots to either the book, to the Bible, Holy Quran, connected to history, connected to something other and bigger than what we are currently experiencing right now. And so when you're talking about parables, politics, and prophetic faith, there are a lot of things that come out, because these are three strong ideas, and these are three strong, visions. Yep. What do you see as being one of the biggest challenges, especially for Black people in this country, in understanding about what time we are actually living in? What has become the big challenge for that?
Brother, right now, the big thing is our response to what's going on with our brothers and sisters in Palestine and Gaza. I mean, the amount of disinformation that's coming over the media. I hear people talking about stuff, and they really don't seem to have an understanding. This is an issue of land theft and occupation and resistance to occupation, and the genocide that's going on in Gaza now. We're actually seeing a George Floyd incident every 10 minutes of children in Gaza. Every 10 minutes, a Gazan child is being killed. I mean, that's George Floyd, okay? And Gaza's got 2.3 million people. They are all dark complexion folk, and they are being bombed by light complexion folk. And nobody is connecting the dots. Nobody's connecting the dots that the same kind of land theft that happened to the indigenous people in this country and happened in South Africa is happening in Palestine now, and has been happening for the last 75 years. And the United States has been co-signing on it, not only co-signing, but has been providing the weapons for it. And so we, in our book, talked about this kind of stuff, because this is part of the hateful faith. The folks who call themselves followers of Jesus are actually blowing up Palestinians, Christians in Gaza. That's jacked up. But they are standing up in their big A pulpits with their big A Bibles and the big A crosses, and actually committing heresy against the gospel of Jesus in the name of hateful faith, in the name of Zionism, which is another form of racism.
And Pastor, I know we're going to take another pause, but help us to understand. There are, and I've actually gotten a lot of folks that have reached out to me, and they always say, Farajii, why do we need to talk about this as Black folks? This is not a Black people problems. This is, and I don't think these are people that are just want to be malicious or mean spirited. They understand the severity of the situation, but some of our people can't make that connection and say, well, why are we talking about Palestinians when Palestinians don't talk about us? They don't stand up with us when we have struggles with human rights and civil rights in this country. Palestinians, our introduction to Palestinians are those who own stores and little corner stores in our neighborhood, and they talk disrespectfully to us. So why is this important for Black America, for Black people to even be concerned about?
When the Michael Brown tragedy went down in Ferguson, and our people were being tear gassed and pepper sprayed, Palestinians were up on Twitter sending us messages to people in Ferguson. Hey, this is how you handle the tear gas. Don't put water in the eyes. Use milk, because we've been there. Palestinians stood with the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020. Palestinians stood with Nelson Mandela and the ANC fighting against the apartheid regime in South Africa. Folks who say this is not our issue, forget that Palestine is part of the bridge between North Africa and Europe. Palestinians are part of North Africa. And so we cannot divide ourselves from them. These are our people. And they are part of our cause. They have stood with us. And Brother Malcolm stood with the Palestinians. And the Palestinians stood with Brother Malcolm. The Panthers stood with Palestinians. Ask Angela Davis and she'll tell you. Ask any of our brothers. Ask Mamiya. Mamiya Abu Jamal has written several essays in solidarity with the Palestinians. And so we really need to check our history and check our relationships. Palestinians have been down with us on all of our fights. MLK was down with the Palestinians. He was fighting the fight with the Palestinians. Folks weren't paying attention to this kind of stuff. It's a global thing, and that's part of why we wrote Parables, Politics, and Prophetic Faith, because the issues that are happening to us in this country are part of the apartheid that is working all over the globe. What Israel is trying to do now is do an apartheid for all of Palestine, when Palestine was supposed to be, check your history, folks, as far as 1915, Palestine was supposed to be an independent country. And in 1917, 94% of the land in Palestine was owned by Arabs, to include Arab Christians and Arab Muslims, and Jews, 6%. Now, look at what's going on. And that's because of the land grab. That wasn't because of anything act of God. Come on, that was theft. And the United States was part of the theft, because 11 minutes after the Israelis declared independence, claimed themselves to be a country, Harry Truman recognized them. 11 minutes, Farajii. I've been talking longer than that. How you recognize an entire nation that wasn't a nation in 11 minutes over the rights of people who have been fighting and vying for their independence for decades. And for those who say there wasn't a thing called Palestine, Palestine has been a society recognized in governments since the early 1400s. Well, further back than that. Further back, 1400 years ago, as a matter of fact, what I'm trying to say. So our history needs to be improved. The Romans knew that there was a Palestine. The Greeks knew there was a Palestine. Palestine was part of the Ottoman Turk Empire before World War I. Palestine, the Turks sided with the Germans and the Austrians in World War I, lost. The British were given control over Palestine because the British and the Arabs who fought against the Germans, the British promised the Arabs that they would get an independent country. They promised it. I got the documents. The documents are available. There are articles that have been written by British scholars showing this. And so people who say, hey, this is a 1948 issue, 1948 is when the Zionists declared, just announced. It's like me walking into your house and announcing this mine now.
Hey, Pastor, okay. I want to put this on pause because we got to take another pause. We got to take another break. When we come forward, man, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I got to pick your brain some more, Pastor. And plus, we're going to get some questions from our online culture crew, folks that are watching from around the country and certain parts of the globe. Folks, join us in the conversation. You have been listening to Pastor Wendell Griffin, who is a retired state judge. He is author of the book Parables, Politics, and Prophetic Faith, and he's offering his insight to some of these pressing conversations. Join us in the discussion right now as we're streaming live on YouTube under Roland Martin. And of course, stay with us. We still got more with our brother on the other side right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation as we have had the start of a fantastic discussion with our very special guest for today. Joining us is retired state judge, author, and pastor Wendell Griffin. He serves as the author of the book, Parables, Politics, and Prophetic Faith. And this book is out right now. You can certainly pick it up. But our brother is also the author of the books, The Fierce Urgency of Prophetic Hope, as well, that came out in 2017. And he's author of a number of blogs, including Justice is a Verb, Wendell Griffin on Cultural Competency, and The Fierce Urgency of Prophetic Hope. There you can find him. And he also serves as the CEO of Griffin Strategic Consulting, as well as the co-chair of the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference. And so our brother is bringing a lot of experience, and more importantly, a lot of expertise into these conversations. And folks, we want you to join us right now as we're streaming live on Roland Martin's YouTube page, and as well on our Facebook page. But it's on our YouTube page that you can join us and be a part of the illustrious culture crew, where we are talking and chatting, and more importantly, we can get thoughts and questions directly from you to pose to our beloved guests. Pastor, I want to go back to the point you breaking down the relationship between Black people, Black Americans, and the Palestinian people. And this is, and I have the crew here. Folks, P. Jackson said that she didn't know. She didn't know that this was the relationship, how far that relationship had gone. And I think at the beginning of your remarks, you said that we're suffering from a disinformation campaign where there's so much. I want to kind of get your take on that, because it is 75 years worth of conflict. And so how do people go, which sources, or how do people go to a space to get the real information? Because, when we do have these conversations, the feedback that I get, that some of my contributors get, well, you don't know the full details. And I'm like, well, it is 75 years. It's a very, very, very complicated history here. So is there a recommendation that you would offer for us to start to go to a space that we can go to, a website, books to read, so that way we can become more knowledgeable?
Yeah, brother, the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference has a wonderful, wonderful set of resources. And go to the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference, www.sdpc.info, sdpcconference.info, and go to Journeys for Justice. There are a wonderful set of resources that includes a Palestine set of materials, specifically on the issue of Palestine and our relationship. That is wonderful. You can use it for book studies, you can use it for study groups, you can use it for personal studies, but that's wonderful. Most of us get our information about Palestine. Let me drum roll here.
Come on.
Drum roll. Most of us get our information from the same folks who were our slaveocracy folks. Be careful when Pharaoh tells you what your freedom looks like. Be careful when your oppressor is in charge of your information. And be careful whenever your oppressor, who's been in charge of your information, is telling you who you should be supporting. Notice that the people who are coming out for Israel in this current situation, even though the world is saying, stop bombing Gaza. Gaza has no air force. Gaza has no army. Gaza has no electricity. Gaza has no running water. And they are bombing Gaza. Now, if that happens, that's called genocide. That's not self-defense.
And Pastor, we can't forget, Pastor, they have no communication.
No, I mean, goodness gracious life. So when people tell you that, and they tell you you ought to support Israel because Israel is democracy, excuse me, the Arab people did not vote on establishing Israel. 75 years ago, there was no election to establish a country called Israel, where the Arab majority was given a vote. It's like the slave owners saying, hey, you have the right to do what we tell you and you're free. Excuse me, that's not true. And we have to understand that's the history of Palestine under the last 75 years. The Palestinians call the last 75 years the Nakba. The May 15, 1948 date for the celebration of the birth of the nation of Israel is called the Nakba, which is Arabic for the catastrophe, because hundreds of thousands of Arabs were run out of their homes. 400 Arab towns, Palestinian towns, cities, and neighborhoods were depopulated. But depopulated by Zionist Jews. Not all Jews are Zionist Jews. Please understand, this is not anti-Semitism. This is anti-Zionism. And there is a difference.
Pastor, I want to kind of get your take on this, get a question, because I think that even in this discussion about Hamas and Palestine and Israel, there's been a lot of confusion about who is Hamas, who is Palestine. I had a Palestinian journalist on the show just a few days ago. And she shared with us that, there are some Palestinian people who are a part of Hamas. Now, I will say the media presentation from this side of the world here in America, they're trying to soften it up and say, oh, we're not talking about Palestinian people. We're talking about Hamas, and that's a different thing. But when you look at the behavior and the military response coming from Israel, it don't seem like they're making any distinction. It's just like, oh, this is another opportunity to justify, as you say, the genocide. Yeah. So can you talk to us? Should people understand the difference between the cause of Hamas and the Palestinian people?
Hamas is a party, like a political party.
Right.
The Palestinian resistance movement had the PLO under Yasser Arafat and the Fatah, F-A-T-A-H party, and Hamas, and there were other parties. The Israelis did not want to negotiate with PLO. And so they actively tried to, under Benjamin Netanyahu, actively undermined Yasser Arafat in Gaza and in the West Bank because he did not want to have a separate Palestinian state. Yasser Arafat was trying to have a separate Palestinian state because that has been what was been promised the Arabs, the Palestinians, all the time. And Arafat was trying to negotiate for that. When Hamas realized that Arafat wasn't getting anything, Hamas began an armed resistance against the Israeli Zionists and began to also undermine Yasser Arafat. There is data showing that Netanyahu actually supported Hamas against Arafat. And then when Hamas defeated Fatah, the Arafat party in Gaza, the Israelis, having worked to get Arafat defeated, then withdrew all support for the separate Palestinian state. And the United States then withdrew all U.S. support for humanitarian aid for Gaza. So this is the double dog, the double trick, the double cross. Benjamin Netanyahu has been playing a devilish game. He has never wanted to have a separate Palestinian state. He has always wanted to have Palestine controlled totally by the Zionist faction. And he wants to depopulate Palestine. That's why he's not only bombing Gaza now, he's also running Palestinians out of the West Bank.
Right. Right. And Pastor, we got to take another pause, but I want to kind of get your take because as this conflict is raging in the Middle East, we're paying for it on this side. Yeah. Billions of dollars, right? We understand that.
$4 billion a year.
$4 billion, because I was about to say, because I know I read that we were paying like $3 billion a year, even during quote unquote peacetime, but we're paying $4 billion a year, Pastor.
3.8 billion. 3.8 billion. Hey, 3.8 billion is closer to 4 than it is to 3.
Oh yeah, oh, absolutely. The president is defending his $100 million package to the Gaza Strip, to those in Gaza, saying that it's going to work and it's a worthy thing. But this is putting America in a very, very unique space. And it's putting Black America in a very, very unique space. When we come forward, how do we move forward in terms of, do we as Black people advocate, or do we just watch and see? Folks, we're going to have to continue this part of the conversation because I want to bring this thing home to what's happening in this country right now and get some more insight and expertise from our Pastor Wendell Griffin. And of course, I want to hear from you on this, folks. What's your take as we're talking about this Israel Hamas conflict, and more importantly, the state of affairs of Black America and where we are in this country? So stay with us. The culture will continue on the other side right here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been chatting it up with retired state judge, pastor, author, Brother Wendell Griffin, who is the author of the book, Parables, Politics, and Prophetic Faith. You can definitely order the copy of the book for yourself from Amazon and other places. But giving us some insight about his expertise and insight about this Israel-Hamas conflict that is raging on right now. And I want to kind of bring it just a little bit closer to home here, Pastor, because we're seeing a situation that I think could be a major defining moment going into next year's election and a defining moment into the progress of the country, at least for the next 5 to 10 years. And here's why I'm saying that. One, I think it's a defining moment for the next election because you do have, and I talked about this, you have Arab Democrats, Muslims, and folks who are in solidarity with the Palestinian people within the Democratic Party who are now saying, hey, we don't like the president's stance on this. And the rumblings are getting louder and louder. I'm seeing more and more people online. I'm talking about young Black voters, Pastor, who are like, you know what? I can't keep, voting for this type of madness, right? And I know voting is a huge issue. I know it's a big thing. But when you're looking at the billions of dollars, as you say, 3.8 billion, that's being spent to support the Israeli people, not just in terms of their personal infrastructure that they may have lost due to that Hamas attack, but you're talking about military aid. When you're talking about certain security measures and intelligence that's going to be used, when you see that type of investment, it leaves Black people in this country saying, y'all backing us into a wall, but now you want us to respond which way? How should Black America respond? Because like you mentioned earlier, there are a lot of similarities in the struggles of the Palestinian and Black folks in this country. So now, do you see this as being a defining moment for this country, especially going into next year's election?
Oh, for sure, for sure. As a matter of fact, brother, there's going to be a march this weekend on Washington. Folks from coming around the country and even from Puerto Rico to march about this very issue. Stop the war, a ceasefire. And that's part of this. The point you made about the Arab Americans in this country, Michigan is a battleground state, brother. You know that.
Yes, sir.
There are 500,000 Arab Americans in Michigan. Joe Biden only won Michigan by less than 150,000 votes. He cannot afford to lose 300,000 Arab American votes in 2024 and win election. He cannot. Now, here's the deal. Those people are saying, I cannot go and look my people in the eye and say, go vote for Joe Biden after he gets off a plane, hugs Benjamin Netanyahu, tells Benjamin Netanyahu's war cabinet that he, Joe Biden, is a Zionist. Hello? And then comes back here and says on national TV, I want you to give me another $14 billion a year. 4 times how much we're giving already. 3 times how much we're giving already for Israel. And we got infrastructure in this country needs to be fixed. We got schools to be fixed. And you want to give this to the Israelis to bomb and destroy dark-skinned people in Palestine and depopulate them? That's not going to work. That's not going to work. That's not going to play in any doggone precinct where Black folks know what's going on. And Black folks are getting it. We are getting it. Because the same folks who don't want us to vote in our elections, who are gerrymandering our elections, are also running the Palestinians out of their country. The Speaker of the House now, Mike Johnson from Louisiana, is a Christian nationalist. I don't call him Christian nationalist. I call him Christian fascist. He's a Christo-fascist. He's supporting Israeli bombing Gaza. Now, this is the same mindset that didn't want us to have a Black Lives Matter movement. They're trying to shut down protests against what's going on in Palestine. So these are the kinds of local, domestic kind of connections. When you're spending this kind of money to do this kind of hateful stuff to folks with whom we have been allied, who have been standing up for our liberation, it tells us very clearly that you don't really stand for our liberation. Your relationships are based more on greed than on principle. Or if it's a principle, it's the principle of greed. And that's not right for us.
And you know what? My sister Lana, she said, and not a dime for Black American reparations. He can go home and retire. I'm over Strom 2.0.
Yeah.
Talking about Joe Biden. And how does that play into that?
Yeah, 2 chapters in Parables, Politics, and Prophetic Faith are about reparations. I wrote them. How can you go and demand $14 billion in 1 year for a government that stole land from Arab people, and you will not come even and support the John Conyers reparations movement to get him out of committee? That's just demonstrates how ill-conceived our principles are. The relationship of justice in Palestine and justice in this country in terms of reparations, because we haven't gotten reparations. I'm living in Arkansas. One of the last massacres of the bloody year of 1919, Red Summer, was the Elaine massacre, where more than 200 Black men, women, and children were murdered by white people from Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee, and their land was stolen. And we can't get reparations for those folks. But you want to give $14 billion to the Israelis now? I mean, you can't even have a conversation about reparations. The only time reparations have been paid in this country was after the Civil War. Reparations was given to former Civil War Confederates. They were given their land back. And the people who would work the land were given no land. This is the kind of mess that we've got to talk about. And this is the reason why we wrote Parables, Politics, and Prophetic Faith, because if we don't raise these issues, if not us, who? If not now, when? Now is when we got to talk about this.
Now, Pastor, this puts us into a space that if you find that Arab Americans black folks, some black folks, the next generation of black, black freedom fighters and others who are using their platforms to encourage not to get involved in the election. Can you speak to the potential outcome that could happen with Donald Trump getting back into the president's office, getting back into the seat? Because I think that level of fear is one of the major driving forces. And then it's not just about him, Trump. Yep. It's talking about even across the states in the spaces that you work in as a judge, where we know that a lot of these states, Republican-controlled states that have these draconian laws, from everything from teaching Black history to voting rights and voting exercise. So there's a very, very real concern, and I'm not going to act as if it's not a real concern, that people are saying, well, if Trump gets back into office, then we're looking at a domino effect of the MAGA influence. But can you speak to that? How do we avert that? By saying, okay, well, we know what Biden has missed the mark on, but we can't allow Trump to come back in. Or do we go really radical and say, you know what? Bump it all. We're going to remove ourselves. And we've been through 4 years of pain before, but we'll get through this one. What's your expertise on that?
First of all, I'm not downplaying the Trump fear factor. However, Trump and Biden are not the only cards in the deck. Cornel West is an announced presidential candidate, and Cornel West has been right on all of our issues. It is our fault if we don't push Cornel up. Now, you see, Cornel is not getting airtime from the mainstream media because they want us to cancel Cornel out. But you understand, if Trump doesn't get a majority, and if Biden doesn't get a majority, but Cornel is given the kind of support we can give him, Cornel has some power. He goes into a convention. The other thing we need to talk about is, please remember that Trump is really worried about what's going to happen to him because of 3 Black women. Letitia James in New York, Fannie Willis in Georgia, and Judge Churkin in DC really have Donald Trump's attention. And quite frankly, Donald Trump is not going to be president, not because of what the MAGA folks do, but because of what 3 Black women are already doing. Folks have already, hey, I was a judge for 25 years. When folks start copping pleas in a case where you're in and you are the top defendant, they are copping pleas to rat you out. And they're copping pleas early so that you will not get the best plea. By the time you get a chance to turn plea, well, we know Trump's not going to plead, but everybody's going to turn on him.
Do you see that? Do you see Mike Pence playing a role in that? Is that why you think that's part of the reason why he decided to drop out?
Let me say this. Mike Pence dropping out simply made the fly that landed on Mike Pence's hair during his last debate have to follow Mike Pence home instead of a Klieg light. He no longer has to have a Klieg light for that fly to land on. Mike Pence was not going to become a viable candidate because Mike Pence has burned his bridges with the MAGA folks. But Mike Pence cannot rehab himself because the MAGA folks have gone too far over the edge. And Mike Pence is no savior. Come on. He is a racist. He's homophobe. He's a misogynist. He's a sexist. He's a pro-capitalist. Mike Pence is nobody's savior. I know he talks about loving Jesus, but understand Judas kissed Jesus before he turned him out.
That's a piece of history that we don't remember. Here's one of our Culture Crew members is talking about Cornel West, because you brought him up, saying, "Sir, Cornel West has zero power. He has zero. He will lose." How do you speak to this idea of having an alternative candidate like a Cornel West or anybody who's coming into this race and kind of shaking things up and being it has Cornel West certainly has gotten the attention of President Biden and former Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton, because they talked about it. It was reported. So what's your take on the alternative candidate at this point? Is that something that Black America needs to support?
I'm old enough to remember when folks said that Shirley Chisholm shouldn't be a candidate. I also remember when folks said that Jesse Jackson shouldn't be a candidate. I'm old enough to remember when folks said that Barack Hussein Obama shouldn't be a candidate. I'm old enough to remember that folks said that Barack should not be a candidate because, hey, the Clintons are going to run this thing. When we listen to people tell us what we can't do, we're feeding into the slave mindset. We've got to unlearn the plantation notion that massa tells us what our options are. Massa does not define our options. Cornel West, 20 years ago, I have a book on my library. You can see it behind me. Democracy Matters. Cornel West wrote the things we're talking about now in 2004. He didn't have to write a book to run a presidential campaign. In 2004, he was talking about this stuff. He was talking about the doggone fact we're having this Israeli, white nationalist, white Christian, big kind of messed up kind of way that's going to mess around democracy. And now we're seeing it happen. I mentioned it in my first book, I mentioned it in this book, but people don't want to pay attention to Cornel because Cornel hasn't been blessed by one of the two major parties. Hello? The two major parties have been messing over us. Why are you going to come back and say, I'm going to make my option to somebody who's been abusing you? Now, if you believe that the best power you can get is from your abuser, hello, then your abuser owns you. And your abuser has no reason to do anything like you because your abuser going to know, hey, all I have to do is tell them, I'm sorry. And I'll give them a present and they'll come back and I can abuse them again as soon as I get them back in the house.
Pastor, we got to take it. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pastor. This is exactly what's happening. Pastor, we got to take another quick pause. When we come back, more conversation with you. I'm seeing that a lot of folks are checking in. A lot of people are looking at, listening to you, Pastor. So look, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come back, more with Pastor Wendell Griffin and with you. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. I want to go back to our very special guest, Pastor Wendell Griffin. He is a retired state judge. He's also the author of the books Parables, Politics, and Prophetic Faith that can be found everywhere. And Pastor, your remarks has gotten our chat, our crew, fired up. Let me just say that folks are fired up in a lot of different ways based upon the ideas that you're bringing to the table. One of the big ideas is this idea of an alternative candidate. Jill Stein has been brought into the conversation among the crew. She got 1.7 million votes in 2016, didn't have a shot, but then Trump got into office. So I think people are looking at this idea of a third party, quote unquote, alternative candidate. We know that there's a group called I think it's called No Boundaries, where there are a group of Republicans and Democrats saying, look, we might run a candidate on this ticket. But something that one of our crew members said, which I think is happening here, Pastor, is that the fear tactic of using Trump as this motivating principle is starting to wane a little bit, because people are like, you know what? Just based upon what you just said about the president, you're giving so much money to another country, to another infrastructure, and we're still calling for justice on this side. When you say you're supposed to be the president for Black America, that you're hearing our cries, but it seems like we're still being put on the back burner. And so I think a lot of people are just willing to take a chance and say, you know what? If we got to deal with 4 more years of either Trump or anyone else on a state level, on a local level, so be it. But something has to give. And I think, can you speak to that as a retired judge, as one that's been in the system, where you're just seeing the dissatisfaction rate of this country is getting higher and higher every single day, Pastor. And people are willing to go as far as to say, you know what? Either I'm not going to get involved politically, I'm not going to get engaged, or my activism is going to be rooted in resistance to the two-party system, resistance to this idea that I have no choice, resistant to what we're seeing right now.
That's the word, Brother Farajii, resistance. And resistance begins with us claiming our voice and making our choice. You don't tell us what our choices are. We decide for ourselves what our options are. We decide whether the options you give us are the only options we have. And we decide whether the options you present to us are not worth choosing. You can't tell me that I've got to choose between stank and stunk and feel good about it. Hello? No, I can find beauty. I can create beauty. I can define beauty. But I sure cannot say that I'm entitled to believe in beauty if I have sold myself to your choice of stink or stunk. And quite honestly, that has been our problem. We have been allowing ourselves to be frightened into supporting people who would tell us what they knew we wanted to hear and then give us nothing until the next time it was time for them to run an election. And then they told us we had to give them their support, our support, in order for them to help us. Excuse me? If you have dissed me for the last 4 years, if you have dissed me, Joe Biden gave us mass incarceration. He was the author of the 1994 crime bill. Hello, Joe Biden has voted for every bill to fund the Israeli military. Joe Biden put the cops in our neighborhoods. And now we're going to have to go back and say, okay, we're so scared of Trump, we're going to give you another chance. No. When we have another option, now it's one thing if we don't know we have an option, but when we know we have options, and the options have said, hey, you don't have to beg me to run, I'm putting myself in. Cornell has put himself out there. And I just ask our people, excuse me, why don't we say to other folks, excuse me, you have told us to come to you. It's your time to come to us. We have come to you enough, and we see what it's gotten. You come to us. Show us a candidate who is better qualified than Cornel West. Show us a candidate whose values are more in line with ours than Cornel West. Show us a candidate who has less intelligence than Cornel West, or more intelligence than Cornel West. And they can't. The reason they don't want to talk about Cornel is because they can't hold a candle to Cornel. And the truth of the matter is, the only people who can cancel Cornel is us.
And well, see, here's the question, though, Pastor, and this is something we talked about here on the show, that there is this ongoing political culture where the average man, the average woman, is not the ones doing the representation. Now, we've been talking about presidents, but I'm looking on even on a state and local level, that the individuals who are standing in front of us, the political leadership, don't represent the poor. They don't represent the marginalized, right?
Yeah.
They don't represent the groups of people who are in need, but who have the greatest amount of faith into the system. They don't represent that group.
Yeah.
We're finding that in major cities across this country, that the formula is, if you look nice, if you bring something to if you're a business person, if you're a tech individual, but like Barack Obama, he was criticized, ostracized for being a community organizer. But and I know that those who are closest to the pain understand that they also have the power.
Yeah.
So it's like there's this it's an uphill battle in terms of the culture, but also it's an uphill battle because when we do try to present new voices, fresh faces, get some young new blood into the party, our people are like, we don't know about you. We're going to stick with what we know, even though what we know may not be in our best interest the whole time.
We wouldn't have Raphael Warnock in the Senate if it had been left up to the usual suspects. Hey, Stacey Abrams, a Black woman, organized, mobilized our people from the ground up. People did that. We wouldn't have Jamel Bowman. We wouldn't have Cori Bush in Congress if there hadn't been that kind of organization. Our people have the power to do this. Congress is literally turning on a few seats, and our vote can matter. But we've got to be smart about how we vote. We've got to be smart about saying, hey, excuse me, why should we support these people who have only shown up at election time and then go and vote against our interests? And then come back and say to us, you got to put me back there so I can help you. That's not representation. That's not constituent care. We've got to take our own power. And quite honestly, that means we have to unlearn some stuff. We have to unlearn our tendency to go along in order to get along.
Pastor, what's your take on the low Black voter turnout in Louisiana? What do you see that as a sign of? What do you see in that situation?
Part of it is sheer voter suppression. If you see what's going on in Louisiana, there has been a multi-year effort in voter suppression. Remember, we're seeing history repeating itself. Folks forget that during Reconstruction, Louisiana sent a number of people to Congress. And after Reconstruction ended or was killed and Jim Crow came into power, the Louisiana voter rolls dropped precipitously because Black people were oppressed. The KKK was on the move. We've seen the gerrymandering. We've seen voter suppression. We've seen it in Arkansas. I live in Pulaski County in Arkansas, the most diverse county in my state. The Arkansas legislature, in order to dilute the Black vote, split my county into 3 congressional districts. You hear me? 3 congressional districts. Now, that's the same thing that happens in Louisiana. We've got to fight in the courts to get that back, but they have planned, hey, listen, we will send them to the courts, but we will get the elections. Between the time we steal elections and the time they win their court battles, we will have won some legislative seats and done some dirt. And that's what happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We got to take another quick pause, Pastor. When we come back, I want to kind of get your take on the role of the Black pastor and minister, the faith leaders, as we are looking at this situation. So many challenges facing Black America, yet we're still in need of some divine guidance on this moment and moving forward. So, folks, we're going to continue the conversation on the other side. Continue to post your comments. I'm seeing them. I'm watching them, folks. As you know, as I'm asking questions, I'm watching what you're asking in the chat to make sure that this is just as interactive and engaging for you as it is for me. So, folks, continue to post your thoughts as we have this conversation with Pastor Wendell Griffin. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home. You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture. We've been checking in with Pastor Wendell Griffin, who is a retired state judge, who is the author of the book, the author of the book, Parables, Politics, and Prophetic Faith. There you go. And this brother has been sharing his insight and expertise on what we're seeing happening right now in America and across the water. Pastor, you are a pastor. You are a man of the faith, a man of the cloth. You are a follower of Christ. We're seeing something very different happening in this country around religion. You talked about Mike Pence and how some of the individuals that, along with Mike Pence and others, are Christo fascists. This is the term that you use. But also, I'm seeing this space. When we had our conversation for our Black Men Summit here on the show, well, and I had a Christian pastor, I had the brother from the Nation of Islam, as well as a spiritual brother. And the conversation about the role of the spiritual head, the spiritual leader, is still an ongoing discussion. Folks are becoming less religious, more spiritual. And so the role of the Black minister, the Black pastor, the Black spiritual head, what is the role that person, he or she, should play in a moment like this when you have so much coming at Black America at one time? Because this also comes from something that I saw one of our crew members talking about, Tiana, who made the point that as Joe Biden did serve as the architect of that crime bill, it was black pastors that were pushing him to do it. Black pastors that were crying out for the government to do something at that time with the high crime rates in some of your big cities in America during those 90s. So what is the role of the black pastor right now? What's the role of the black minister? What should be the divine guidance and prophetic faith that folks should have at this moment?
I want to draw a distinction between the black piety movement and the black prophetic movement. The black piety movement is big on prayer and Bible reading, and the black prophetic movement is big on protest and resistance.
Say that again for us, Pastor. I want folks to hear the difference.
The black piety movement is big on prayer and Bible study, and the black prophetic movement is big on protest and resistance. Jesus was into resistance. Jesus turned some tables over. Okay, hello. He turned tables over outside the church house in the name of God. He wasn't just a praying person. He was a people moving person. He was feeding folks for free and getting in trouble about it. He was healing folks who had pre-existing conditions and wasn't getting a license by it, but he was not allowing people to shut him down. When we get into the people helping, people working, people protesting, resisting work, we are doing the best work of faith, because faith gives meaning to our efforts and our energies and puts our energies into protest and resistance. If all I do is pray and read my Bible, I'm reminded of what Frederick Douglass said. Frederick Douglass said, I prayed for my freedom for years. I got my freedom when I prayed with my feet. We have to, and I will say this, I've been a pastor since 1988. I've been a preacher since 1985. Do the arithmetic. I still remember preachers in my childhood who didn't want to be associated with Martin Luther King Jr., who now have Martin Luther King Jr.'s pictures on their study walls. Martin Luther King Jr. came to Little Rock, Arkansas in 1958 for the graduation of Ernest Green, the first black student to graduate from Little Rock Central High School. He was one of the Little Rock Nine. Do you know that Martin Luther King Jr. could not find but one pastor let him come into that church?
I can believe it.
He came to Ernest Green's graduation. He went down to AM&N, it's now University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, for their commencement. But black pastors would not let Martin Luther King Jr. come to their church. Now, don't think, because I know pastors who wouldn't let Jeremiah Wright come to their church. Hello? Because their white friends, hello, told their black members what to think about Jeremiah Wright. And when that happens, that means that we have not been decolonized. We still have colonized minds. I'm going to mess up on somebody. There's a wonderful theologian named Miguel de la Torre in Denver, who's written a book about having badass Christianity. Hello?
And what does that mean, Pastor?
That means Christianity that gets its hands dirty, rolls its sleeves up, and does resistance work. That Christianity that occasionally cusses folks out because they're no good liars, even when they show up with their big Bibles and tell us to pray together. I do not go to prayer meetings with folks who are hateful. If you have been hating on my people, don't ask me to come pray with you. I will cuss you out in the name of Jesus. And Jesus did cuss, because I know about grammar. And the 23rd chapter of Matthew, Jesus was just cussing all over. He called folks snakes. He called them empty graves. That he called Herod a dog, a fox. Now, that's cussing terms. Quite frankly, we have got to learn how to get beyond pietism and get into prophetic work. Cornel West wrote about this in 2004 and has been doing this kind of work. But again, so many of us don't want to find out what Brother Cornel said. We'd rather listen to, hello, drum roll, our prosperity preachers. Our prosperity preachers. Okay, so folks are running 5 to a mule to go be there loosed. Hello? T.D. Jakes. When's the last time you heard T.D. Jakes do anything about fighting against police brutality? When's the last time you heard these prosperity preachers showing up for Black Lives Matter movements? If people are not willing to get in the streets with us or get in the faces of the folks who are abusing us, why do we trust them with our souls? And this is the challenge. We really have a strong faith heritage. Harriet Tubman was a faithful woman. Sojourner Truth was a faithful woman, but Harriet Tubman carried a pistol. Hello? Malcolm X's daddy was a Baptist preacher. And Malcolm X was a minister in the nation. And Malcolm was a Muslim clerk after he left the nation. But Malcolm was a person who was down with the people. He was not afraid to talk about white supremacy. He was not afraid to talk about Africa and draw a connection between Africa and Atlanta, or Africa and Alabama, or Africa and what's happening in LA, or Africa what's happening in Dallas or Philly. He was not afraid to do that because Malcolm knew that pietism was not enough. You have to have the prophetic. And that's the challenge. Our churches are necessary because we are a faithful people. Faith, as I talk about in my first book, fierce faith is necessary. Fierce faith is necessary because these are perilous times. But we have to have faith that does more than just holds a hymn book and mouths a Bible verse. When people are hungry, they need more than God bless you. Especially when folks have been cutting off the food supply by the votes they cast in Congress. When people are dying because the water is poisoned in Flint and in Jackson, Mississippi, they need more than, well, we just bring you a case of water. They need folks to get in front of the politicians and say, excuse me, you are killing our people. And we, in the name of God, refuse to be quiet about this. This is the kind of faithful situation our clergy need to have. And we need to have men and women of faith who are doing this kind of work. When our LGBTQ brothers and sisters are being beaten, denied their jobs, put out of their homes, we need to have people of faith saying, excuse me, you cannot do this in the name of God, no matter what kind of God you pray to.
It is.
And when our people are being placed in incarceration, which is public housing, but you will not let them live in public housing with their families when they get out. We call you hypocrites. How can you incarcerate us in public housing and then deny us to live with our poor families when we get out? How can you build schools with public money and build prisons with public money, but won't build schools? This is the kind of questions we need to ask, and we need to ask it as faithful people. When our clergy do that, and that's the kind of stuff that King did, that Brother Malcolm did, that James Baldwin did. People forget that James Baldwin was a Pentecostal preacher. Hello?
I'm going to have to stop it right there, Pastor. I got to stop it right there. First and foremost, I want to say thank you for your time.
Thank you, brother.
Because I cannot thank you enough. Because even if what you said may not agree with, many people may agree with, or it doesn't resonate, the fact is that you are a man that's been walking this walk for years. You understand the dynamics, and I truly believe that you have a love for our people. So, whatever you say should be not cast away, but should be highly, highly considered as we are in this state here in this country as Black folks. So I cannot thank you enough for your insight. I cannot thank you enough for your service, and I cannot thank you enough for your time for being with us here on the Culture on the Black Star Network. Folks, the pastor is our brother. Thank you, Pastor Wendell Griffin. He is the author of the books Parables, Politics, and Prophetic Faith. Make sure y'all check it out if you want to get more insight. And Pastor, I look forward to reconnecting with you very soon, God willing. But thank you again, brother. I truly, truly appreciate the conversation.
Stay strong, brother. Thank you for letting me be on.
Absolutely, absolutely. Folks, that's going to do it for us. I thank each and every one of you, crew. I hope that you enjoyed the conversation. I see the chat is on fire. So I hope y'all just take it all in. Make sure y'all rewatch this. Make sure y'all share this with your friends and family and have conversations about it. The ideas, the thoughts, put it out there to the people and say, look, this is what was talked about on the culture today. What y'all think about this? Have some conversations about it. Whether you agree or disagree, the fact is we got to talk about it. The fact is that the pastor is bringing up some very, very important points. The fact is that we are in a serious situation. And the fact is that only we will be able to change our condition when we decide that enough is enough. That's going to do it for me. I want to thank my fantastic production team. I want to thank Joel and Shanna. I want to thank Chris and Maddie. I want to thank Lisa and King Keenan. And I certainly want to thank Brother Roland for the platform. Make sure y'all follow us on all social media platforms at blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free. Follow us on social media. And please give to help us power this digital movement. And also follow me on social media at The Real Farajii on Instagram. You can follow me on Farajii on Twitter and on Facebook at Farajii Muhammad. I would love to get your feedback about today's show. And I truly appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. Stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin Unfiltered at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Peace.
Peace.